So this is a phase 2 trial focused on patients with recurrent serous endometrial cancers that have expression of the folate receptor alpha. And it's combining an antibody drug conjugate or an ADC called Mirvetuximab and with an immune checkpoint inhibitor, pembrolizumab. And this combination was based on the idea that antibody drug conjugates can augment the anti-tumor immune response and hopefully improve the response to immune checkpoint inhibitor therapy in this difficult to treat population. So this is a phase 2 single arm 2-stage study where all patients enrolled were treated with the combination of mirvetuximab and pembrolizumab, both administered every 3 weeks until disease progression or intolerance. The primary endpoints of the study, there were co-primary endpoints actually, which were objective response rate and the rate of patients that were progression-free at 6 months, or PFS6. Yeah, so I think the main takeaway here is that this study met its primary endpoint. In the first 16 patients that we treated on trial, the objective response rate was 37.5%, with one patient having a confirmed complete response and then 5 patients having partial response. And this response rate is really encouraging in this population of patients that really don't do well with other therapies. It's higher than we would expect with either of these agents alone. And so suggesting that, there could be a potential for this combination. The other thing that I think is notable to mention is that the duration of response was not as long as we'd hoped in the overall population. However, there were 2 what we call exceptional responders with patients that had sustained responses for almost 12 and up to 18 months. And so one of the main next steps for this is to really identify who those exceptional responders are and what are the biomarkers that can predict who would have a really great response, and then also predict who may need additional strategies to prolong the response. Yeah, so I think really focusing on that difference between patients who had a really long response and patients who may have initially responded and then go on to have progression, trying to identify biomarkers of response and resistance, which will then in turn help us to evaluate other potential therapeutic combinations that could not only improve the response rate, but really prolong that duration of response for these patients. I think the study also really underscores the biologic rationale for combining antibody drug conjugates with immunotherapies. Both ADCs and immunotherapies are really coming into the forefront of treatment in gynecologic cancers and especially endometrial cancer. But we know that, first of all, not all patients respond to immunotherapy. And with ADCs, we know that resistance does develop. So this concept of combining an ADC with immunotherapy, I think is well-founded in preclinical studies, and it's showing in our clinical study now to have a good signal here and be something worthy of further investigation.